Welcome to Waters World. I'm Jesse Waters. Terror in Charlottesville, that is the subject of tonight's Waters Words. White nationalists showed up in Charlottesville on Saturday protesting the removal of a Robert E. Lee statue. It's important to note that this was a nationwide rally that had been advertised for a month. Yet only a few hundred people showed up. This shows you how fringe the movement is. But it wasn't just white supremacists who showed up. Black Lives Matter radicals, Antifa members, and other so-called anti-fascist left-wing fringe groups descended upon the scene looking for trouble. Both sides came armed to the teeth with pepper spray, makeshift clubs, and shields. Here's an image that encapsulates what was going on. Shockingly, law enforcement in Charlottesville did not get in between the protesters or disperse the crowd, even as it turned violent. Fox News reporter Doug McElway reported it this way.
Nobody was intent upon peace here from either side. People were intent on causing havoc and causing damage. And even as wounded were being brought out of the park, the police were sitting idly by. But when the tear gas started to fly, thrown by protesters, the police themselves began to evacuate that. I asked the guy who was in charge, I said, "Where are you going?" He said, "We're leaving. It's too dangerous." They had an opportunity to nip this thing in the bud, and they chose not to.
The police chief and the Charlottesville mayor are going to have to answer for this dereliction of duty.
Speaking of violence on the American mainland, I want to switch to Charlottesville because it really does, as much of an advocate of the First Amendment as I am and as you are, when you see the First Amendment turned into an excuse for violence, as it was here, you throw up your hands and you say, how far can we go to enforce, make sure everybody gets the right to say what they please, but at the same time enforce rules against violence?
Well, the hate speech is protected speech. The theory being the speech we love doesn't need to be protected. It's the speech we hate and fear.
So even the march, the torch march that was that resembled the Nazi marches in the 30s is protected under the First Amendment.
Listen, under this theory, the Nazis were given permission to march in Skokie, Illinois, a predominantly Jewish city at the time.
No matter how much it might have incited the violence on other groups.
Correct, because the theory is that the remedy for hate speech is not to suppress it. It'll come out somewhere, but to have it out in the open so it can be resisted by more speech.
So do you have to wait until the first stick is lifted and the first head is cracked open before you jump in?
Yes. You have to wait until the moment before the violence before you can jump in. Now, there's a lot of theories as to how this violence happened. Donald Trump might have been right when he said it was caused by many sides. There's nobody who was 100% right. There are some people who are 100% wrong in this
Can I just ask about policing for a second here? I know it's not necessarily what you do, but it's a part of what you do, or what you did as a judge. The police were not there for the first hour of the violence taking place. All of our camera crews were, not only this network, but other networks as well. So we knew where the epicenter of the violence was going to take place. We saw these people with their helmets, with their knee pads, with their sticks. We knew it was going to get violent. Why weren't the police there?
You know, as reprehensible as this guy is that orchestrated the thing, what he attempted to say yesterday was correct. The police dropped the ball. I spoke to an eyewitness who's a former American intelligence agent who knows what he's seeing. The police were not there when they should have been there. The police canceled a permit at the last moment. And after all this happened, the police let people go to the microphone and say the federal government of the United States should be overthrown and replaced by a communist dictatorship. That's protected speech. But the other stuff is not. Police shouldn't be making judgments.
So what do you think happened? I mean, we have a mayor who made his political preferences clear on Saturday. We had a governor who did the same. So was there a political decision?
I hope not. Here? The job of the police is to protect all speech, whether the police agree with it, whether the politicians agree with it, whether the crowd agrees with it or not.
But again, it was the statue of General Lee that was the cause of this thing. I mean, in terms of the physical, we knew that would be the epicenter of the battle. We knew that that's where the forces on the right and the left would gather. That's why our cameras were there, but we were shocked not to see the police there until there was a lot of blood on the ground.
The federal government, the Justice Department investigation, part of it will center on why the police weren't there, because the failure to protect the civil rights of a person, the poor girl that was murdered, the thugs that shouted horrible things, the failure to protect them is a civil rights violation.
Wonderful point. Judge Napolitano, thank you very much.
Pleasure, David.
Appreciate